Good evening. Welcome to the Mancunian Way. I was waiting for somebody else to do that. Good evening. Welcome to the Mancunian Way. My name is Martin. I will be your host, I guess, off camera. Hope you're all well.
Okay. You can be our wise voice, Martin. You can be our wise voice from a distance. By camp.
Dictator voice, Rich. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
Like 1984.
I wasn't even meant to be on tonight. I wasn't even meant to be on tonight.
Martin, can you do it in more of a Richard Burton style? You know,
yeah, come on.
Like is it 1984 Richard Burton? Slightly more sinister. Yeah, especially on the topics we've got the serious matters at hand, the future of Premier League football.
Well, yeah, we were going serious. Good evening to all in the chat. I hope we're all good. Yeah, we thought we'd have a bit of a chat because while I'm on, I might as well break down some of the news that I've had today as well. But yeah, City versus the Premier League. Will it ever end? And to be totally honest, no, I don't think it will. I think this ends in one way and one way only. But yeah, we'll get on to that. What I have done is, by the way, because I have spoken to 1894 today, they have really loved the video from last night. They thought it was an amazing video, and they wanted Rich little comment about Richard Masters clipped up. So it has been clipped up and put onto 3 YouTube shorts, which are now out on the channel, where Rich describes Richard Masters in a lovely and probably accurate way. So yeah, I know there's a lot of people watching England at the moment. Shame on you. What are you watching that boring stuff for? Yeah, so good evening, Rich. Good evening, Ozzy. How are you, gentlemen?
I'm
very good.
Thanks, Martin. Doesn't sound like much has happened since I was last on, to be honest. So I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about.
Yeah, man. Even when we were on the show last night, something happened because we had Etihad coming out with a statement when we were on the show, which was in itself very fascinating. And
I am hoping, Rich, you have that statement up in front of you because I am going to come to you in a moment for that full statement in full. If you can get it up for me.
I can get it up. Yes.
Thank you very much. So yeah, Ozzy, obviously you've been away. Things have happened since. Cheeky stepped down. Pep looks like he might be extending for 2 more years because he's out in Abu Dhabi for commercial reasons. If you could all see me now, I've got inverted commas, commercial reasons, out in Abu Dhabi for some weird reason during international break as we're approaching November. And it looks like Hugo the Anna from Sporting Lisbon is coming in. I have had some news on that today. He may be doing a bit of a Dan Ashworth at the moment, but we'll get onto that as we're going along. Because is Hugo Bayana starting in January, or has he already kind of started behind the scenes? More on that shortly. Yeah, so before we get into the main subject, Ozzy, you've not been here, so tell us what you think about all the news lately.
I don't know. It depends on who you believe. I mean, if you think Cheeky's leaving, a lot of rival fans, a lot of pundits are saying that he's leaving because, he's deserting a sinking ship. So if you want to believe that, okay. Not that he's a man of 60 years of age. He's been with the club a lot longer than, Pep, and, he's one of the masterminds behind creating City to what they are today. I think he deserves to retire, if I'm honest. He's had a massively good run. He's done so much for this club. And the main thing he's done is bring Pep Guardiola into the club to have all his success. So I say congratulations to him, and I hope he has a happy retirement because if he's a man who deserves it. With the news with Pep, I mean, you've been saying it for quite a while, Martin, that you thought he was going to extend, at least be a 2-year deal, which if true, it's great news. I was leaning towards the thought that he probably would stay. I think he'll stay. I think even if and I'm nowhere to get into it, but even if 115, finds guilty and we get massively punished, I think Pep. I don't think Pep would want to leave to just make it look even worse. I think he may want to stay and, get us back up as quickly as possible, and then see out his final year and hand the reins over to a new manager and maybe a new CEO or whoever else is going to come in and take the reins of the club. So, yeah, I mean, on those two pieces of news, I think for me, good news and sad to see Cheeky go, but good on
him. Someone has asked, is Alan banned? No, Alan pulled out of the show at the last minute tonight. So there you go. Alan told me 5 minutes before we were coming on air, he was not able to come on.
Yeah.
So
he is only allowed. He is only allowed to play for 2 teams in 1 calendar year, though, under FIFA's rules. So
everyone now begging for Alan. I say, hey, listen, you all beg for him until he ends up at yours. Then you want to transfer him back. There is a very nervous LB right now waiting for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Trust me.
LB,
very nervous LB.
It's just reading a long list of Carsley out tweets, probably.
Yeah, right. Let's get into it. So, obviously, the title, is this ever going to end? Now, I had a long chat with the person I get info from earlier on today, for around 2 hours, getting loads of info. Personally, and this is just my viewpoint, I do not think it will end in the way everyone wants it to be, because I don't think the Premier League and the 20 members, the teams, will ever agree on what they all want to agree on. I don't see a world where they're all going to agree on a nice little set of rules where this is going. I said, if anyone remembers, 12 months ago when all this was starting, I said this could end up down a political road. It is technically starting to go down the politics road. This could get a lot bigger than football, if you want my honest opinion. I think it will go bigger than football. Some stuff I've heard I cannot say right now. I do have a gagging order on it, but it has also involved some politics a little bit. So yeah, there's a lot of things at the moment. You saw Etihad Airlines, while we were on the air last night, come out with a quite indirect dig to the Premier League. Which,
and I think even more to it than that, Martin, in some ways.
Yes, and it wasn't really even it wasn't even football related. It was on Sky News. So, Rich, you want to read that statement out?
Yeah, I mean, but basically, I think the main quote they said, and this is, Etihad does not do any transactions with any partner that is not on the market basis. We have an amazing governance in Etihad. The mandate we have for our shareholders is very clear. Deliver extraordinary customer experience and at the same time deliver an airline that is financially viable. Now, there's two, as Martin said, there's 2 big things about this that I think the media is choosing to ignore. One, Etihad is going through a float. It is going through currently an issue of effectively floating the company, transaction which will be worth many, many billions, and and during that time, Etihad will have open books to all the investors and will be demonstrating the veracity of their business, the veracity of their projections, the veracity of the history of their books and everything else. So this is massive commercial deal with billions of pounds at stake, and this is a company bigger than any of the Premier League teams, bigger than several of them together. And what the message of that is pretty clear, is that Etihad is putting on the record that we have supreme governance and we never pay above market basis. Now, that is a pretty clear statement to the Premier League that if you say that that is not true, if you impugn that, if you defame Etihad in public, you know, and that could be in the outcome results of the 115 trial, that'll be something that Etihad will look on very poorly. So that's potentially bringing in legal action from outside the clubs, outside the Premier League, if the Premier League or other clubs impugn the reputation and put any potential damage into Etihad's float. Now, note that, you know, scandal on the books or something that wasn't, you know, if it was true and there was hard evidence, then that's a different matter. But if someone makes allegations about Etihad that aren't true and bandies that around, and Etihad deems that affects the price that they get, you are talking about something that could have huge commercial damage and that you would assume could be pursued through the court. So that's something Etihad's putting on. And the other thing which no one's commented on, which is very interesting, is the fact that Etihad's CEO has gone on record to say that, you know, when he has to be absolutely, you know, pretty much perfect in what he says, suggests to me that in 4 weeks of the 115, that Etihad do not believe one shred of hard evidence has been produced, because no CEO of Etihad is going to come out and make a statement like that if they think, and they would know, that the Premier League has this non-existent evidence. So it suggests to me those two things, that Etihad must feel very, very confident on what's happening and must know that what the Premier League are saying is untrue and can't be demonstrated, that there is no evidence. That, you know, is likely to be true. But I think it's also really a message to the Premier League. You've now got to be careful. You're not now only, you know, potentially damaging the reputation of a club, and the clubs do sign up to all these rules and everything else, but a sponsor does not. A sponsor is a separate legal entity, and these are very large legal entities. And I think they're sending a very, very clear message to the Premier League. And you know, that really is, this battle now going outside the Premier League and the football clubs to actually major international companies. And, you know, that in itself starts to involve, you know, international relations, governments, politics, and businesses that are far bigger than the Premier League.
Sounds messy, Rich. Sounds very, very, very messy.
Well, I think it's very, you know, it's a very interesting move, because you assume that it's not, you know, like, you know, City went to the Tribunal 12 hours after the rules came in. I think it was right on the beginning of it. It does suggest that, City brought their transaction with Etihad 12 hours after the rules came in. It's getting very interesting. There's some pretty big moves at play.
I suppose that's one way of looking at it, Richie. It's getting interesting. To be honest, I'm not going to lie. I think I'll probably speak for a lot of people in this, that honestly, I'm sick and tired of all this. I mean, I've been listening to a few people, commentators, and I was listening to one journalist saying that, you know, he had to sit down with a lawyer to kind of go through all this. And it was just like, it's the first time I've really had to sit down with a lawyer, you know, to talk about a football team. And it's just like, this is what it's got to. We're not talking about football anymore. We're not talking about what happens on the pitch. You know, we're talking about legal stuff that I definitely don't have a real clue about. I know, Rich, you have more, you know, knowledge about stuff like this than I do. So, you know, we appreciate your background and all this. But honestly, this is just getting absolutely ridiculous. It's getting way out of hand. And I worry what it's doing, you know, not only to the Premier League, I worry what it's doing to us as a club, you know, with all of this negativity, all of this, you know, happening in courtrooms, you know, all these decisions that just seem beyond ridiculous, because I just think, why is it that City, the current champions of the Premier League, are having to go to war with the Premier League? To me, it's just got way out of hand, and you can understand why the UK government wants to step in and go, you know what, this has gone beyond a joke. Now we need to step in and put a proper regulator in, because
and I think that's what the fans,
clubs in
fans want.
Premier League just can't work together, and that's just, people aren't listening. I just think, for me, and I heard you guys speak about a lot of this last night about the rules, and I just think, why can't the rules be just simplified? So you have, you know, because all the rules just seem like you have a law for this, a law for that. It seems like there's a million different laws for all these things. When it goes to court, you're going to have fancy lawyers come in and they're going to find loopholes and whatever else. You know, why can't it be you have just simple rules that are laid out, 25 rules, let's just say, of things you can and can't do. These are the consequences if you break these rules, and that's it. Because it just seems that it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, you know what? You know what's worse there, Ozzy, is that you have these rules and UEFA rules. So half the Premier League is having to produce and keep to two sets of books. So even if you believe in financial fair play and you think it's the right thing and everything else, why wouldn't you just have the same rules as UEFA? You know, why would you have clubs having to maintain your real books, as in the ones that are audited and, you know, the books of your company, then have the books that are your UEFA books, and then have your Premier League books? And now, not only do you have three sets of books, but at least one of them's changing every month because the organisation can't get its stuff together.
You know why, Rick? Yeah. Do you know why?
Because too many cooks spoil the broth.
Disappeared.
And not only that, I'll tell you why. People are like this. Because our owners are from the wrong part of the world in their eyes. This is where we're at. This is where we're at.
But it's much more than that, Martin. It's
well, is it
different?
Is it
different.
because
No, it's different philosophies. There used to be a philosophy. No, just Martin, I'll just do this, and then there used to be one philosophy in football, which is like, you want to come in, you want to spend as much money as you can, as in get away with, and you want to achieve success, and everyone's in there. And you had, you know, whether it was the Moores or Edwards or even Peter Swales or whoever it was, they came in, they tried to raise money, they tried to get as much money they wanted to spend and get success. And success might be winning the FA Cup, you know, it might be winning the League Cup, it might even be, if you were one of the top teams, it might be there. But now it's way beyond the just golf. It's basically now two camps. One is the camp that is in football for the sport, the glory, the reputation, the connections and everything else. So, and that's not just the golf. I say it's not just the golf because, you know, you've got teams, you know, you have got American North African owners like Villa, who are in it for a reason like that. You have got owners like the Thai owners who've come in like that, like some of the other Asian owners, even like, you know, Roman Abramovich, as well as City and Chelsea and Newcastle. So you've got lots of owners who are in there, and, you know, it's a, you know, whether it's for reputation like some of the States, whether it's a plaything like Abramovich, whether it's about connections, whether it's just like, you know, for some of the owners, it's like having a Ferrari or a 20 million yacht in Monaco, or 200 million yacht in Monaco, I should say. And then you've got this other camp who are American sports owners. In American sports, Sports is profitable. It's a guaranteed cash flow. You don't have promotion and relegation. You can sell your team between cities and move your franchise, like we've seen with some of the teams like, the Titans and the Raiders and stuff, where they will move city to city, with the money. So sport is a business. It is a business with guaranteed cash flows. It grows in, a steady state in terms of its shareholder value, and it is an asset. And you've got teams like Liverpool, Arsenal, Glazers, who aren't football lovers, who are sports business owners, and sports to them is like any other business. You want to have a revenue that's growing. You want to have a profit. You want to take out dividends or cash every year. Sometimes you'll accept you'll lose money and invest, like, to a degree. You've seen it with Arsenal Stadium, with Tottenham. But fundamentally, that investment is for longer term cash flow gain. And those clubs see it as business. You've probably then got some ones in the middle, like, your Brightons and your Brentfords, where they're not owned by billionaires. They are toys of people who are big fans of the club. I mean, Bloom's a lifelong Brighton fan, but they're still businesses that they can't afford to put billions into. So they might side with the Americans because they can't afford not to, in a way, not because they see it as a cash flow, not because they have the same principles as the Americans. And I think the barely disguised racism, which there is in time, is the result of the philosophical difference. If the Gulf owners were seeing it the same way as the Americans, wanted to make money and everything, they'd be absolutely fine. But I think as soon as there is this different philosophy, and that philosophy threatens the money from the US, because if those teams come in and invest and the US teams are in the middle, risking relegation, they're not taking money out. They're having to pump it in. They're having to buy players to compete. They're having to fight hard to get into the Champions League. That's why they tried to fix the game, because that's how American sport works. You can't get relegated. You don't have Champions League and stuff. So all the teams in the league get the money. So, and that's what we call them the Red Cartel. That's what they wanted. They wanted to know we're going to be in the top four. Therefore, we're going to get the Champions League money. Therefore, we're going to be able to take out dividends next year. Therefore, we're going to keep going well. And that model, that American static, safe, making money model doesn't work when you've got Russian oligarchs or, UAE foreign ministers or Saudi investment funds or Egyptian, property magnates wanting to pump hundreds of millions into the game because they want to win. And they see their biggest win is to make their club huge, and therefore all our investment's worth it because we've grown the capital base. So Martin, I think there is that anti-Gulf thing, but I think it's secondary to the
well, Rich, the reason I mentioned it is
they love it.
Rich, I understand that. The reason I mentioned it is because obviously that email that came from a certain chief exec within the Premier League, who
was it a London chief exec?
Yes, a Gulf investment was poisoned, bad, etc. They even called it the Newcastle Law, which was even baffling to how they even got around that. I don't know how. If I'm Masters, I'll shut up again. Rich, you're doing what you did last night. I'm saying one thing, you're jumping. Go on. I'm not going to argue with you tonight.
No, I was just going to say, Martin, very specifically on that email, the Tribunal looked at City's transactions. So it only looked at that email from the point of view of whether that email was relevant to City's case. If Newcastle,
but that email had gone out. Yeah, but that's coming. That's coming, Rich. That's something I've got for later on. That is coming. There are 6. Apparently, there will be some clubs who are also going to take the Premier League to court. Now, I've left this comment in off Paul Standall here. Super League is coming. I think this is what it's all about. And people can and ahh and everything else. For me, the Super League never went away. if we seriously, and I was naive enough to think 2,000 fans in the street with a few boards and a few placards and a few coloured in blankets, we're going to make these multi-billionaires suddenly stop everything and throw that idea out the window. I don't think it was. The Super League is exactly what a lot of these American-owned football clubs want. When you look at the 10 clubs that went against us or gave evidence for the Premier League, you look at where all their investment is from. Then you look at the clubs who are with City. You look where their investment is from. It's quite clear and obvious which road this was always going to go down. You are right with that. I do think it is a business philosophy as well. Of you have the Gulf ownership who want to plow money in to win, and you have the American owners
and to grow the asset.
Yeah, and to grow the asset, and of course they want to make money. Of course they do, but they want to grow the asset through winning and everything else, making it huge. Where some American owners want to do it through just dividends and everything else, and you know how it goes, Rich.
Yeah.
The thing that I found a bit of it, and one thing I can tell you is I'm not saying they're ever going to pull out, but Emirates, I got told this today, have asked the question to their football club.
Yeah, no, I mean,
which you are going to do. Yeah. Which you are going to ask that question of, why are these emails coming out? We're your main sponsor. We're plastered all over your stadium in your shirts, people. Where are we from?
And let's not forget what you're doing. Let's not forget, Martin, that the sheikh's, or I should say one of the sheikh's wives, is the daughter of the person who has effective control of Emirates.
Yeah.
It's
a bit, I don't know how they're even thinking it.
It's not the first time Emirates spoke to Arsenal, not mentioning who the club is, but everyone knows. Emirates, who was that comedian who made those racist comments about sand monkeys or something? Alan, about a year or two ago, made some comments. I was told that on the quiet, words were had between sponsor, people involved at the club, and potentially probably, I'd imagine, the individual themselves, because that made it into the. And the other thing is, let's not forget that the UAE government is all together, and so a stain on the UAE is a stain on Dubai and Emirates, just as it would be perceived across there. They have the same leaders, the same group. They are the same family, and you have, so there are a whole host of sponsors, and the same with Saudi, who are strategically incredibly important to the United Kingdom at the moment, and in fact the entire Western world, incredibly
a lot of pies.
Yeah,
they have so much sponsorship deals with the likes of like Disney, and other big clubs, other big investment opportunities for a lot of clubs, to have sponsors. So you don't really want to antagonize a country like Saudi Arabia or Arab states.
Well, the UAE. I mean, you don't want to. Well, you shouldn't want to antagonize anyone. And if you are being, if you are in a public forum having high profile, indirectly racist, agendas happening, and the parties to that are, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in a country and investing tens of billions in a country, added to that the exports that they bring from that country, I think you are going to start having those questions asked at a far more serious level. And this is why Etihad made the statement. Etihad are like, we're not going to have some tin pot league in another country. And I say tin pot, probably, it's not a tin pot league. It is, arguably the world's biggest league, but we're not going to have you know, what would be seen as relatively junior officials making statements that risk the perception of our business.
Rich, can I just put a bit of a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory in the mix?
You know, this
play devil's advocate. Sorry, Rich, I think you're just a bit timed out, mate. Just back to Martin's point of kind of Super League possibly incoming. Could this just be a massive smokescreen? All of it, because all clubs really and truly want the Super League. Because let's not beat around the bush. City also put themselves a couple of years ago into the Super League. They were like ready to kind of jump ship and sign their names away. So is it possible this is all a big ploy just to kind of get the Super League back so they can turn around to the fans and say, we can't work with the Premier League. They're just, you know, they won't see sense. They won't see, you know, what we're all trying to say. Is it just they've all come together and thought, you know what, if we make the Premier League the enemy here, would it work in our advantage to get what we want? Because at the end of the day, as much as we applaud our owners, they're in it for the money, majority. They want to make money. I mean, we only have to go on to what happened with ticket prices. We only have to go on to disabled parking. We can pretty much see that City are always on the side of fans. They don't always kind of have the fans in mind. You know, supporters groups don't get the time of day a lot of the time. So can we really sit here and go, is it not a possibility that clubs have just thought, you know what, if we get together and we just rebrand this as in it's not working and we can bring the Super League in through the back door, and most people may go along with it because they just think the Premier League's done. It's ridiculous. It's not able to function and govern itself properly. Is that a possibility?
Go on, Rich.
Rich, can you hear me? Did you get any of that?
And I'm having sound problems. I think I heard the last bit. Yeah, I heard the last bit of it, a conspiracy theory. I think my problem with the conspiracy theory thing is you've got two camps, and
yeah, but I'm just saying you have got two camps, but you've got camps.
It seems like two camps. One camp goes and one camp stays.
Yeah, the thing is, I would agree with that. I understand what you're saying, Ozza, but I do. The thing is with City is City don't want any relationships with some of these clubs anymore.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think City want to get into bed with an Arsenal or United anymore.
Maybe, but we've got to play somebody, Martin, and we've got to play either win the Premier League or we've got to play within a Super League. It doesn't matter. You're still going to have to deal.
No, I agree. This is what I'm saying. The trouble is, this is going so silly now to a point where it's no longer about sport. We are now with Etihad's statement last night. That told me we are going higher now. This is getting to a certain point now where this is no longer becoming sport. You are now dicking around with people's businesses, people's reputations, people's everything. Etihad, you know, whatever surprise if Etihad eventually say, screw you, UK, we ain't doing anything with you anymore. I don't know. It depends how far we go. The problem is right now is, and this was my point to Rich last night, was the Premier League are not giving any way. The Premier League think that City have only won minor things. City are saying, no, we proved your whole aspect is unlawful. That's it. We want it changing. And the Premier League going, nope, we ain't changing anything. What we're going to do is small amendments. But what scares me,
that's ridiculous, because
they're going back to the tribunal. So what City said,
the tribunal now has to come out and explain
go back to the tribunal and City's understanding, and they were very clear on this, is as they left, is the tribunal is going to give some more specific advice, and the tribunal is going to advise about how the rules have to be changed to be lawful. And the Premier League then went and refuted that. Now, I've seen a few people commenting that City would have been very unlikely to have said so specifically that they'd agreed to go back to the tribunal if that wasn't true. So it looks like now they are going back to the tribunal to ask a few things, because the Premier League, the other thing the Premier League done is they have said, which the tribunal will probably refute, that the tribunal has said everything else is okay. The tribunal has said that with relation to the transactions with Etihad and EAB, that the other aspects of City's arguments weren't relevant or weren't proven or weren't of a high enough bar. It hasn't said that that is true of Newcastle or Chelsea or anyone else. And it hasn't said in principle, this wasn't a case about big, broad principles at the High Court. It was a case about specific transactions being unfairly valued by the Premier League. So the Premier League is trying to draw massive macro conclusions because some of the principles City attacked with regard to these transactions were not proven or not, seen by the judges.
Well, hence, Rich, the thing that's baffling me is hence why we're able to sue, allegedly, for 180 million in damages due to the first Abu Dhabi bank deal, the Etihad deal, and the Etihad Palace deal.
We've been invited to, yes, so we can.
That's what I'm saying. So if the Premier, but the way the Premier League is saying it is though, well, we can't do that with what you're saying because because that's why City. But apparently, what I did got today, City knew that was coming. City knew the Premier League statement was coming out. If you notice, the Premier League, City were already ready. 12 hours later, with letters out to the other 19 clubs. If you notice,
apparently
City were ready to go.
Yeah, apparently, City had told the Premier League that they were going to release the report if the Premier League didn't give it to the clubs and release it. Because the Premier League sat on the report for 12 days and did not say a word.
Breaking their own rules, by the way, Rich.
Yeah,
breaking their own rules in the process.
Yeah. I should imagine they probably quietly spoke to a few people. Again, that's not an allegation. It's just an assumption based on the way the Premier League behaves. I'd imagine there was some quiet conversations and I'd imagine there was some leaks because there is no way that certain journalists at a certain national newspaper could come out with the articles they did within, was it an hour and a half or something of the publication. There were polished, accurate, substantive articles.
Yeah, exactly.
So people had been sat next to people at the Premier League or at City. It could be, either way. They had sat there looking over a shoulder and seen this, and I suspect certain. So quite clearly, there has been, shenanigans.
There's a little bit of, there's a lot of underhandedness going on right now. As much as I hate it, I just need to do these, by the way, because UEFA, thank you, mate, for your $4.99. There is no evidence 115 is classic diversion stalling tactic. Thank you so much for that, mate. Maybe that's something we'll have to look at down the road. I would love to be a fly on the wall right now with all this going on as the 115 case for the Premier League is going on, because God knows what Lord Panic is saying in the middle of this right now with some of the statements I've heard he's making at the minute. Mark Fogg, thank you for renewing your membership for the 16th month. You are a legend, and I will get back to you on the question you asked earlier. Because I'm in my car, I cannot do what I need to do. So next week, I will sort that out for you, mate. And then he is gifted 10 channel memberships as well. You are a legend, sir, every time you are on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
you.
So, Martin, going back to the original kind of question: where does this really leave us with the Premier League? Where does this leave?
Do you know where I think it leads? And I think we end up at Super League. I've said it now for 6 months. I was so it's never happening. I just think the relationship with City and the Premier League is beyond broken. I think it's seriously gone to beyond broken.
But do you think for 1 second,
though, Martin?
Yeah,
because
do you think for 1 second
just
United
be
are
breaking away?
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying it will be. I don't know how we get to it. I think the Premier League, if I'm honest with you, we all said 10 years ago that the Premier League was getting to a point where it was going to end up too big. And that was the fear by a lot of people. It was getting too big. But the trouble is, this is where people have very short memories. You look at the first 20 years of the Premier League, it was led by a certain band of clubs. And it was the same clubs in cup finals, winning the leagues. This all began very slowly at Chelsea. But I think at the time, I think they probably thought, right, well, United and Arsenal, United definitely was still a powerhouse. And I think they were sat there going, right, we can deal with one. With Chelsea, we can deal with one. Yeah. Then City come. Then Newcastle come. Now, Villa have got an Egyptian billionaire sat behind them. And I think they've sat there and all thought, hang on a minute. We can deal with one. Can't deal with 4 or 5 of these now coming. 4 or 5 of these is getting too many now.
Yeah. And that because they know
and it's like,
there's one.
Yeah, when you keep seeing that your share of the pie going smaller and smaller and smaller on the table, I think they sat there going, shit, right, we need to do something now. And I think Newcastle was the final straw for them. They come after us for 10 years because let's go back to the originality of this. They tried to stop Newcastle straight out the gate because of the piracy stuff, if you remember, going back. Was it BN Sport, Rich? If I remember, was it BN Sport? So they were trying to get that. Yeah. That was trying to get null and voided. They ended up in court over the Newcastle takeover to push that through.
So why?
And then as soon as the Newcastle, because I don't think Newcastle right now, because what they've tried doing with Newcastle is stop them from the off. Because when you read that email, 4 days, Rich, after the takeover?
Yeah, it was 3 or 4 days, wasn't it? And
3 or 4 days. That's when this APT stuff come in. Then they updated it again in 2024, in February 2024. So what they've done is Aussie put barriers up to Newcastle at every level, so Newcastle could never go anywhere. Newcastle were being stopped to getting out the gate, and with the rules that were in place, they had stopped Newcastle coming out the gate.
And there is,
so in their eyes,
this is where
they've stopped Newcastle.
Yeah, but it ends up by stopping every club really, because you only have to look over the last. You only have to look over the last few seasons. You know, like transfers. You know, it's gone downhill because very little clubs are able to do full transfers because spend the silly money they were spending a few seasons ago.
It's killing
You only have
football.
to look at what COVID has done to Europe, because now the big clubs in Europe, they can't spend like they used to. So it is all surrounded with the Premier League. That's where the money is. But because these rules have come in to basically stop everybody, because they've all got to follow the same rules, it stopped everyone from able to kind of compete properly.
Does it? And they're just rich. Because would we have known about these owner loans if we hadn't gone to the APT?
Well, we would have, because they're on in their books.
No, but what I mean, but they weren't. No, but it's because they weren't included in the PSR.
No, but they're in their accounts.
What I mean is the Premier League would know, Rich, but the general public wouldn't have known about that rule.
Well,
nobody would have known about it.
We wouldn't have known that under UK competition law it was unfair to exclude that versus that, but we all knew they had the loans. Right, you know, it's been very, very.
I'll be honest, Rich. I had no idea Arsenal had stuck £220 million of shareholder loans into them.
Yeah,
I didn't know Brighton had done it.
Yeah, no, Brighton is a quite commonly known thing that basically, because there's been a lot of talk about how Bloom's effectively
I think, Rich, what Martin's saying is, though, the average fan isn't going to follow the financial situation.
The average fan isn't going to follow any financial, but it's publicly available information.
Rich, you will because of your job. But if you're not in your job, Rich, you're not going to follow it. So that's a bit of an unfair followation, what you're saying there, Rich.
But you know, your average
the information's out there, Rich. I think we can all agree that, you know, if you want to go and find this information, it's out there on the internet. You can go and look it up. That's fair enough.
Yeah,
but I think the average fan is going to sit there and not know this because
the average fan is interested in football played on a pitch.
Exactly.
Not interested.
We're not talking about.
We're not anymore, Rich.
Yeah,
you've got to know the legality of everything.
Yeah, the average person doesn't know, you know, the books of Coca-Cola or.
Do you know what, Mark? I don't think
Richard
Rich is as happy as he's been until now because, you know, over the last couple of years since this all has come out. Like, Rich has never been so much passionate about being able to speak about financial situations because look at him, he's got the biggest Cheshire cream smile.
No, it's not really passion because if I wanted to, you know, talk about finance at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, I'd just do my job. You know, it shouldn't be a conversation that's had. It's just a confluence of, you know.
If everyone does not know, Rich. I won't say for where, but Rich is a CFO. That's how he knows all this. It's why Rich is a pig in shit right now because he's loving all this.
But I think you have to go back. I think you have to go back to really, really simple things, and this is what fans should be thinking about: is that certain clubs have said it wouldn't be fair if Newcastle could spend $1 billion every year and blow us out the water. That's not fair because we couldn't compete if we're only allowed to spend 400 million and they spend $1 billion. That's their argument. And then they put in place rules that say other clubs in the Premier League are only allowed to spend 100 million when they spend 400 million, or they're cheating. Or they're only allowed to spend 150, I think, probably more in the case of the relegation type clubs. But we're allowed to spend 450. So they say the answer to a club not being able to spend double what we do is to make half the teams be forced to spend less than half the money we do. So the answer to unfairness in football is to legislate unfairness in football. That is their argument. It is complete hypocrisy. It is based on complete lies, and it is utter delusion, stupidity, and lying to themselves that they can sit there and pretend. And I've seen people who I actually quite like as pundits, like Ian Wright, saying it would just be unfair if Newcastle were allowed to spend what they want and we weren't allowed to able to spend the same. But he supports rules that say at the start of this season there are 8 or 9 Premier League clubs whose salary budgets has to be less than half what Arsenal's will be. Less than half. They have to start with their legs tied together and play in a competition on an even footing with a team that the rules say they are not allowed to compete with, because that stops Arsenal suffering the same thing. So it's like, we are going to make you suffer what we don't want to suffer from because we're entitled hypocrites. And it's utterly entitled.
You are right, because they didn't care 20 years ago, Rich. They didn't care 10 years ago.
No, they didn't care. And, you know, Bill Shankly's team would, if FFP was in place, Liverpool would never, Shankly wouldn't have even got them promoted. They wouldn't have gotten promoted. They spent, on Ron Yates and Ian St. John, they spent the equivalent of over £150 million as a championship team on 2 players. Now, you tell me that a championship team today would be allowed to spend 150 million on 2 players.
All right. Well, I just need to.
They created the, you know, I would say the greatest team.
He's on one, Martin.
Certainly Europe-wise in my lifetime. on the back of that,
Can I just,
so,
Rich? Mate, I love your passion. I love your passion, but I need to. There's over 200 people here, mate. I need to read one or two things out. My apologies, Rich. I know you. I know this is, like I said, pig and shit time for Rich. I know you're loving it. I know you are, mate, and I'm backing you all the way. Super City does make. This is my point I was making, Rich. The fact these red clowns have been battering us for fair related parties for a decade, and can you get more related parties than getting a loan from your owner? Now, I know you're going to come back to me, Rich, and say no, because you can square that into equity. I know that's what you're going to come back and say to me. I'm not disputing that part, because I know they can. Yes, you are quite right. But my issue is the below market interest rates. That's where they've been a bit sneaky, Rich. And you know that. Because it's now come out, Brighton, Arsenal, Everton especially, which I don't really want to dig on Everton, because Everton have become our best friends. Everton are up there with us now. We're locked in for life with Everton. Everton, go boys. Blue Cartel. But if you'd have put the proper fair market on them, Rich, they would be in a bit of doo-doo right now with PSR. That's where it's a bit unfair. Because, in all fairness, Rich, I'm looking at and I'm going, well, how did they buy Declan Rice for 115 million then? Where did that money come from? Arsenal have spent over 800 million in the last 4 or 5 years.
No, that's not.
That's what I'm saying. If that was us, Rich, there'd be a whole stank about that if Sheikh Mansour had loaned us 400 million.
I mean, the thing that's ignored in all this is in the last, and the only club who has, and I hate to say it, I really do hate to say this, but the only club who has any right to make any comment on City spending, because the only decent sized club in terms of success in recent times whose spending is similar over the last 5 seasons to City's is Liverpool. All the other clubs have outspent us by a mile. Chelsea, United, Arsenal, even Villa, even some of the clubs like have outspent us by net spend many times bigger. And even mid-level teams like Wolves and stuff, I think are on net spend pretty much on a par with us. Liverpool's net spend, because they had a very good sporting director like Cheeky, is good. So they can talk about that. But the other clubs, they've spent 3 times as much as us over the last 5 years, and they've got no right to talk about massive spending, because City are actually fairly prudent by today's standards. And our books the last 5 years are a lesson in prudence as much as anything else. We've gone into every summer knowing we could easily spend 300-400 million, and we've not even net spent a quarter of what we could have done in quite a few seasons. And that's a big thing. But
let's just put that aside, because we know, basically, we know what our net spend is. We pretty much know what the other clubs are. It comes out everybody summer, who's won the net spend trophy. Where I want to narrow this down a bit more, because I think we're slightly losing sight. But where does this ultimately go? Because Martin's saying that relationships are looking like they're unrepairable with certain clubs, the Premier League. I want to know where this goes, because eventually the grown-ups are going to have to come back in the room and sort this out. It's either going to go.
It's got a point, Rich. It's got a point. The grown-ups are going to have to get together at some point and sort something out.
Yeah, of course
they are.
We just end the Premier League.
This can't continue, because eventually the Premier League will rip itself apart. We're already hearing about.
Well, first,
we're already hearing about.
I think we're already there. I think we're already there, Rosa.
Yeah,
I don't think it's ripping itself apart.
That's true. Well, where does it go? Right. Firstly, when this starts harming the profits of the American companies and starts harming the value of their business, then they will realise that the inverted commas blue cartel golf clubs won't care about this in the same way, but the Americans they're in it for money. So when this
Sorry,
starts,
I love this blue cartel stuff now.
When
I'm
this
getting a
starts
thumbnail of blue cartel.
yeah, when it starts impacting the financials of these American companies, they don't have any real their fans fight this battle on Twitter, but they don't actually have any major passion.
How is it going to hit them in the pocket realistically anytime
because
soon?
If the way the Premier League, the way the Premier League is going,
this could go on for years.
They're not that the American clubs are not that super rich that they can go on for years. They are businesses who are delivering returns through hedge funds, etc. In many cases to shareholders. You know, United and Liverpool have to provide returns to their shareholders, capital gains or financial returns. Arsenal's a little bit different, but he's a businessman. He's not in Arsenal because he's a North London boy who wants to support Arsenal. He's a businessman in the west coast of the US in TV and sports, who owns sports clubs that become profitable. He hasn't spent his fortune to make his sports clubs win at everything. He's a businessman.
But again, Rich,
so when that happens, well, no, it hasn't. When the next sponsorship deal, no, you're talking quite soon. When the next TV deal, when the next sponsorship deal, when the next, European deal come in, they will start to come down. And they have based their business models on getting 10, 20% growth every TV deal. If there was a TV deal today, it would be going down 20%.
But why?
And
because at the end of the day, we're not going to suddenly start.
Why? Because we're killing the product. Because we're killing the product.
Rich, is that the players are still going to go out on the pitch and play the football. We're still going to play Arsenal in a few weeks. We're still going to play United in a few weeks down the line. We're still going to play the teams. Everything's still going to happen on the pitch. That's not going to stop all of a sudden.
Well, no, but
Aussie aren't going to suddenly turn around and go, we're on strike until this is all sorted out.
But a TV negotiation deal starts shortly. When the TV stations come back and offer 20%
just sign one,
offering. Yeah, but there's two deals. There's what they go into negotiation for the next one. They're a year into it. It's a 3-year deal or whatever. They go into negotiation on the next international one pretty soon, I believe. And they negotiate those deals 18 months in advance. So when that next one goes up, and instead of going up by 20%, it's going down by 20%. And when whoever comes in to sponsor the cup or sponsor the league wants to pay less, when the sponsors are asking for money back, that is when it hurts these clubs. And believe me, if the Premier League keeps having points deductions, if it has points deductions coming into the title run, if people get bored of watching lawyers arguing about the game, it will become less valuable. That money will go into Spain. The love of football's there, but it will go into the championship, or go into Spain. It will go to UEFA.
No, but that's a good point Blue Art makes. Do you know what it is with City? And I know this is why it's such a hard question to answer, Ozzy, because the way City are looking at it is, and this is the best analogy you can have, you have a wife, you have a partner, you have a husband. That husband cheats on you once, and you go, do you know what? It's a mistake. I'll give it you. Husband or wife does it again, or girlfriend or boyfriend. Twice. Right, we're going to have a conversation. When it's getting to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, when does that person stand up and go, enough's enough? That's where the Premier League and the clubs have pushed City to a point now. Because this is not just the last year they've been at City. This is 10 years they've been at City now. And City have just gone. You remember what Caldy and Almubarak said in that interview? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And he warned everyone about this. He told everybody, don't do it. Don't do this. Because you do this, we're going to, basically, that was, you do this, we're going to kick your ass. And we're coming after you with both barrels. And you don't want to play with us. Well, they played. They stuck their hand in the cookie jar one too many times. And City have gone, that's it. Enough. And this is where we're at.
Yeah, and Etihad have said, that's it, enough.
Everyone's had it now. because the thing is, basically the Premier League's at a 50-50 split right now. When you look at it, it's gone straight down the middle. And I don't know what people think. There's this petition, get rid of Masters, doesn't change anything.
Well, in some ways, Martin, it does, because I think Masters being out of his depth. And the funniest thing is, the Premier League actually has a chairman or a chairwoman who.
Yes, I know, Rich, but they need to get rid of this 14 vote shit.
Yeah. You think would be actually leading from the front and showing some leadership at a time of absolute crisis. And, they have an invisible chairman who quite clearly is, I don't know, holiday home in Cornwall, trying to avoid having to support the organisation that they're supposed to be chairman of, which is worrying, because they need leadership at the moment. And they have a marketing man heading up. They have a marketing man heading up the organisation who, not from his own fault, he's a sales and marketing guy. He's not he hasn't got a legal background. He hasn't got a corporate governance background. He hasn't got a deep background in dealing with billionaire companies. It really was, let's run this nice little organisation that was fairly amateurish in many ways. And, we get, X billion pounds a year from TV deals and everyone's happy. And suddenly now the clubs individually have ownership worth 100. Some of them, what PIF in Saudi Arabia is probably worth hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times more than the entire Premier League. So now you've got this marketing guy who is at the centre of a legal battle with 20 organisations, 18 of which are bigger than, probably more like 15 of which, with their owners, are bigger than the organisation itself, who are all fighting for their own interests. And whereas Scudamore in the past seemed able to hold 17, 18, 19 clubs together on everything, quietly talk them through, the new guy has obviously been influenced and backed by certain clubs more than others. So no longer tried to act for the whole league, but act for a shrinking majority. I'll say majority, but a shrinking majority. And that isn't tenable with running the Premier League. The person who runs the Premier League has to have knowledge, authority, expertise, and has to be able to herd the cats together. He started kicking some of the cats, and his job is to herd the cats and serve the shareholders, not to kick some of the cats, to conspire with some cats to try and kill off another cat, to try and stop some cats getting their dinner and everything else. So
Rich, ultimately then,
he's out of his depth.
He's saying basically, they need to get rid of the king because he's not fit.
Well, he's probably Edward II or Richard II if he's a king.
Well, yeah,
for any historians out there.
Do you know what's really sad though? I don't think Masters will go. I know everyone thinks his petition, and Noel Gallagher, by the way, big up. He sent his email and told them the red cartel, which is great of him.
Let's be honest, Martin. How many petitions actually lead to anything? They don't.
Well, this is what I was about to say. In Masters, because in Masters' eyes, because I tell you what, if he thinks, listen to someone on Sky today, even he said this meeting next week is going to be one of the worst meetings I've ever got into. Because the question, I won't name the club, but one of the clubs has already made a question to them and said, right, you want to do this? We're all going to go in and have a conversation. Should we do the EFL clubs as well? And apparently he went, nope, Premier League only. So they went, well, 3 of us are going to get relegated out of this, and 3 of the Championship clubs are going to come up. They're not going to get any votes now. And we're going to vote on something. 3 clubs may not even be in this league next year. And we're having a say on the future of it. Because you're not going to change this rule next season. So what about the 3 clubs that come up out of the Championship? Are they not allowed to have a vote?
Yeah.
And this is the problem now. This is not just this is now becoming a football wide problem, because what you're also saying is now, because by the way, when you look at these rules when they go to the UK government, it's EFL and Premier League that are going into these with the UK government. You also Richard Masters, and who's the other guy? Rich, former Liverpool guy.
Rick Parry.
Oh, what was he called? Rick Parry. We're together.
Rick Parry, yeah.
Yeah, this is the problem.
So ultimately, though,
I don't know. I don't know where you're going to go with it.
But the problem is, even if you look at the championship, the clubs can't agree on a deal for the championship because the clubs at the top are like, well, yeah, we can afford to give an extra 10 million a season to the championship clubs.
This is what I'm saying, Rich.
So yet again, they can't agree on that. So when they,
do you know the only way I see it, Rich? A massive and also, the only way you see this, and people may think I'm balmy here,
probably. You
take the power away from the clubs. You know, this thing of the clubs, it's a private equity and the clubs are the members and everything else. You got, if you're going to appoint a proper Premier League board with a chairman and all this other stuff, get them, the guys who make the rules. They have no influence from CEOs. Because the trouble is, like Pep said, you are going to have this debate now going forward because it's become a 50-50 split of an American owner and Gulf investment owner, and neither of the twain is going to meet. So how the hell they're even going to get 14 votes through, I don't know.
So this is where, realistically, the UK government are right that a regulator needs to come in.
Yes, that's the only way.
Fans will back that 90%. Fans will back the 90%.
That is the only way, Ozzy, this will get straightened.
And the trouble
that's the only way I can see realistically, because I mean, we could go down your route, Martin, and say that this is just going to completely split the Premier League in half, and it'll just mean that this league comes along. I know it has, but what I'm saying is to the point of where we'd actually get a proper split where teams go off and form their own league, or like Super League, like
we could be like America, have the Gulf.
Well, Fraser Eric said UEFA won't allow a regulator. Why would UEFA not allow a regulator? Maybe I'm being dumb there.
No, I think there's something. There are rules. I think UEFA and FIFA.
Football.
There are rules to say that the government.
Well, I'm going to be very blunt. Then the Premier League's fucked because you're never going to agree. You're never going to get them agreeing.
Equally, I think if handled properly, the government could regulate without direct interference, because it would be naive to say there's no government interference in European football. There's a huge amount of government interference. The other thing that's really interesting, this and another power play going on, which no one's talking about, is that currently FIFA is potentially being FIFA's World Club Championship is potentially, in terms of television sponsorship and everything, about to be saved by the Gulf. So you've also got power plays going on at the FIFA, UEFA, and government level, and I think this is one of the problems, is that the Premier League clubs are fighting their battle in the Premier League, but the real battles are taking place at the top level of global football, in government, in cabinet office, and this is where, I remember the story when the
I thought you were going to mention the ARA stuff, because it looks like everyone's challenging rules at the minute.
Well, and like the Giara stuff, it looks like in nearly every case, sports governing bodies get challenged in the courts. They seem to lose. Which tells you they're not following the laws. I just need to read this because Tanju's a Newcastle fan. Big up to yourself, mate. Problem with the government regulator is that's going to be rigged too, because Keir Starmer's an Arsenal fan, and we now also know he gets his season. No, he gets his box free. Don't even know that.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, there are security issues for Keir Starmer being in a box, and let's not bring politics into this.
Shouldn't be getting it for free.
I know. I'm not going to, but I just think it either has to come from the taxpayer, then has to pay for it, or he doesn't.
Well, Ozzy, if it was up to United, you're going to be paying for their new stadium, mate. Blue Goat, thank you for being a member for 17 months. I do apologise. I know that came in very early on. You are a legend, sir. The Mark Fogg, again, has now gifted another 10. That is 20 memberships, mate. You are a legend, as everyone is tonight. Thank you so much. I apologise again that I'm off camera. I just quickly do need to do this, even though we are off camera. Big up to footballprizes.com. Don't forget, you have a chance of winning a Mateo Kovacic match worn shirt. Get that out. With his 2 goals against Fulham, you get your chance to win that, as well as a Ruben Diaz signed shirt, as well as two hospitality tickets for Southampton at home. It is £3.95 a ticket now. The early bird special has ended. There is only 275 tickets. This is going on until, and I've not got my glasses, it is open till Thursday the 17th of October, 12 p.m. Sorry, no, that's when the draw is happening. It is open until Wednesday the 16th October. I've not got my glasses. I've just said to you, I'm having a bit of a nightmare at the minute when it comes to that. I'm on my phone because I am down south. I'm in Berkshire, in a nice little cottage. I was having a lovely weekend off till everyone cancelled 4 minutes before we went live.
And he wouldn't let me and Rich run it on our own, you know.
But anyway, yes, I was meant to be away, but you would have just had Rich versus Ozzy for an hour now. Good. Martin is made up to know. I mean, listen, I'll be straight. We are going to move on. Big up to everything else. We are going to move on. We're all going to do another 15 minutes. I know it's a bit shorter tonight, but I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. I have also heard City may not be the only club that will take legal action against the Premier League. That's why I know this could all blow up still. I think Newcastle are very close to going down that road, plus other teams. I think there's... I don't know what... I think we'll hear more when this tribunal... Have they given a date on that, Rich? When these findings are going to come out?
I don't think it's
in a more... Yeah. No, but Rich, this can't bloody drawing on for ages and ages.
Which thing you're talking about? The tribunal, the 115?
Yeah, the ATP stuff. Because they've both gone away and said we want the tribunal to fully explain this now. When are we expecting this?
I'd imagine that could happen in 4 to 6 weeks. They're retired judges, so they won't be, and the tribunal's still open, so they're still on standby. So I'd imagine that could be quicker.
So basically, there's going to be a lot of mud throwing. Yeah, because this meeting, by the way, well, at the meeting, they've said they're not planning on doing any votes. They've already made that public. There's no voting happening at this meeting next week. So if you're all thinking it's changing next week, no chance.
You know what I really would like is, you know, and I haven't seen anyone comment on it, but I would really like what a legal opinion is on Luton Town, because Luton Town have been relegated because of rules in place that did not adequately, if those rules were live, punish at least one club. And had the rules been correct and applied shareholder loans, Luton would still be in the Premier League. So I would love to know how, if the APT part of the PSL rules is illegal and Luton now challenged, you know, and I don't know whether there's bindingly signed agreements with what happens, but I would love to know what the legal position is on that, because it seems to me Everton, if the rules had been applied properly, Everton would have been 150 million worse on their APT case. So do Luton have a case? Equally, do Everton have a case that they have lost prize money because they were deducted points and lost league places because of illegal PSR rules, because the ATP part was unlawful. So what does it mean? Because the Premier League hasn't said anything, but people say we can't go backwards. But if you don't go backwards, that means the laws backwards remain unlawful. So does that mean, as I think City is suggesting, that actually in 2022, anything the Premier League stopped under APT, that party could potentially seek damages? Or are they always the Premier League going to have to say those rules were not in place because they were not lawful, so they get sued? Or can someone come and say, well, actually the rules were in place, they were wrong, if they were corrected and lawful, I would be in a different position to what I ended up in, and therefore I want damages as a result of this? And no one's talking about that, but if it's something that needs to be discussed. I don't know whether there's something being missed, but if the rules, it looks like back to 21, some of them are unlawful, then they're unenforceable. And that means on either side, there are various parties who could be due damages now.
That's what I'm saying. Pete James makes a great point. No point in voting because any club with any loans will vote against everything anyway.
Well, yeah, but people say that, but they actually can't, because the problem is, if they do, then they're just saying you can't have any APT rules. So we can say those loans don't apply and they're outside the rules, but you can only do that legally if you also remove the other APT rules. So the league's got a choice. You do a comprehensive rule or you have no rule.
Well, at the moment, Rich, the Premier League has said they're only doing minor adjustments, and that's their wording. So we'll have to see what happens in the next week or two.
It's the fact those minor adjustments have to go back 3 years at least, and potentially again, no one's tested it. Those rules might have to go back further, and that's why City wanted clarity. Because if something,
this is why I'm saying, Rich. This is what I'm saying. This is a hamster wheel where the hamster is nowhere near finished yet.
Yeah.
Sadly. Anyway, we're going to do 10 more minutes, and then I will let these gentlemen go. Just a little bit of an update. Ozzy, I didn't get your take on Hugo Viana. I know we had a bit of chat, but it does seem like he is. From what I've heard, he could potentially, or he's going to start in January. Pep has had a bit of a say in this guy. We did talk about it last night. How do I put this? I think he's doing a bit. I've heard he could be doing a bit of a Dan Ashworth at the moment, where he's being copied into things already. Remember the Dan Ashworth stuff at Newcastle, and it was when United were already copying him in, which would make sense. I think it's very good. Do you think it will make a change to January? Because the wording I've heard is this Hoyland. I can't. What's Rich? What's he called? Danish fella.
Hoyland.
Oh, is he? No, not Rasmus Hoyland.
I thought it was nearly
not Haaland.
Yeah, I thought it was one letter different to Hoyland.
No, there's a J in this one. Apparently, is a very high up on the list. As is Zubermendi, that is now true. Because the plan is, if they can get a straight 6, is to move Rodri into more of a. And the exact wording I got was Rodri. So Rodri becomes the 8. Zubermendi would become the 6. Now, there are reports at the moment Zubermendi has again now said he doesn't really want to leave Sociedad, but it doesn't mean that he won't try. Not all these targets are for January, some are for the summer as well. I've been told Barella has now been moved to the summertime. But Hoyland and Zubermendi could be January. Would you be happy with those? And would it surprise you if it is someone like Homeland with Viana coming in?
I mean, I think we all agree that it feels like someone needs to come in. As much as we all have said that, I think Pep over the next few months is going to try and fix it with the players we've got. And then I suppose, will he say, well, actually, I fixed it and now we can just continue with the players we've got and then just leave transfers to the summer? Because we know ultimately, unless it's a buyout clause FC, we're going to be spending over the odds. So that's why I can kind of understand, the buyout clause going for Zubimendi. And again, I can see, the argument of replacing Rodri and putting him into the IR rule. It does seem a bit, putting a bit of a plaster over our, midfield, because I mean, that's a big role that I feel that Zubimendi would have to come in and suddenly have to hit the ground running. And I don't know if I like it, if I'm honest. I think there's a lot.
Do you not do that for Spain, though?
Yeah, but it doesn't always mean it's going to translate from your industrial form to your club form. You're playing with a lot of different other players, so under a different manager. I can see. I just don't like it because I just think the midfield needs a lot more work than just tinkering around the edges. I think that midfield.
Yeah, but you're not going to change all them in January. That's the point.
No, that's what I'm saying. That if it comes to it, if Pep is able to kind of, plaster it for a few more months, until January, and then if he says, actually, I've got a system that works, don't really want to change that, and bring somebody else in, and you have to change it yet again. If he feels that actually by January he's got a system that works where, we're in a decent place in the table and it's going well, then it wouldn't surprise me if Pep turns around and says, no, don't get anybody, leave it until the summer.
I think that'd be a disaster.
Possibly.
I think we do need a six. I think we can't.
But we have seen Pep do this before. We've seen the club do it before, Martin and Rich.
I don't think
we've all
said.
Yeah, but we said this about when we needed a centre back and we were having Fernandinho and Rodri at centre back, and we were saying, "What are we doing?"
Yeah, and Liverpool won the title.
Yeah, and we paid the price. We paid the price.
I know
Liverpool ran away with the league.
I know. What I'm saying to you is that we know what the club are like. We know what Pep's like. If they're so stubborn that they think they work out a system by January.
You would have to sacrifice expectations because there's no way we could go to Real Madrid or like that with that midfield.
I don't.
Well, Madrid at the moment, we probably could. We could probably get a Madrid with the Resis at the minute because they're too busy fighting amongst themselves.
They are. I'll give you that one. They are. I am still putting your comments on, so hello. I know some people have left. And thank you for joining us.
I think you have to be realistic, and I think you've turned around and said, realistically, you don't see us fighting on all fronts for every competition this season. I think it's realistic.
The news I've heard is City are going balls deep in Jan. They're after someone, and they're already in meetings now. And Pep said that himself. Yeah, we've already gone into a meeting about January. The plan is to sign someone.
I'm sure they have, Martin, but we know things are said now, but come January, things may have changed. That's football for you. Things can happen.
Oh, no. I accept nothing's 100%. I 100% agree with that, but I just think City would be massively silly not to buy anyone in Jan.
Yeah. I think, Ozzy, that we've shown in the past, and I think it's very, very hard to do a deal in January with a club like Inter Milan or who's deep in the Champions League and stuff like that. I don't think it's going to be.
That's why Barella's been moved to the summer, Rich.
Yeah, I think getting a deal done with a Torino or with respect, even a club like probably Sociedad for good money is doable and will get done. And I think we saw that you know, to a degree with you know, our big deals in January, what people like Dzeko and Laporte, there've been deals that haven't been done with the very biggest clubs who were deep in the Champions League at the time. So I think we can do a deal, but I don't think we can get a Guimaraes or a Barella or someone. But I don't doubt we could go and get ourselves a number 6 from, you know, a decent enough side.
I think if you look at the targets they're looking at, Zubimendi's a buyout. So it's convincing Zubimendi to leave. That's your obstacle. But it's a very easy deal to do. So you've not got problems.
Yeah.
And I know there's tax, but say you'll pay the tax.
Yeah, Martin, you saw his interview yesterday. It was like...
Yeah, I thought he gave mixed messages.
I don't know. That first interview, when he was asked about City, he looked like he was a child at 7 o'clock Christmas morning when they've just discovered an extra.
And he's like, well, you know, the words I got today was 200 odd grand a week would sway anyone because he ain't getting out of Liverpool.
Yeah. And Pep. And
yes.
Playing with Rodri. I mean,
the Hojlund one is easier because, see, I don't know if that would technically be a conflict of interest if you went and tried to do that deal in January. Well, you're dealing with yourself. With you,
it would be, but if we paid enough money, they'd be more than happy. That's the thing.
I know, but Hugo Viana's going to accept and then leave. How does that one work? Yeah. I'd love to see how the Hojlund deal would even get done.
Yeah, but let's be honest. If, like, let's say we took Arteta, you know, Arteta came in with City's manager, and then we signed Gabriel Jesus for 200 million, Arsenal aren't going to complain. If you bring Arteta in and you sign, you know, Bukayo Saka for 30 million, they are going to complain. So, you know, Humeland's deal is only a problem if we don't pay enough money.
Yeah, well, like that's it, Martin. Do you mean
comparing him to Jesus? I mean, I'm not sure I like
Martin. Do you mean that the board are discussing? No, they're discussing internally. They've approached agents. They've spoken internally, approached agents. Technically, you're not allowed to approach players. Humeland's very different because, like, this is what I was saying with Humeland. I don't know how they get around that one because they're kind of discussing with themselves. No, and I know people like Dash, you mentioned about KDB. KDB's a little bit different because we weren't. Pep wanted him at Bayern. We said no because Pep went, yeah, I'm coming to City, go to City. That's different. When you do any transfers, you speak to the chief execs. Well, their chief execs becoming our chief execs in January. So is Cheeky going to speak to him?
Director of football. I mean,
you know what I mean, Rich. Rich, I know what you know what I mean. Well, what the hell? He's emailing himself. By the way, I'm copying you in. I'm just going to copy you into this email about this player.
I suspect you'll have Ferran.
I'm being a bit flippant with that, Rich. Yeah, I'm being flippant, Rich.
Yeah. It'll be different conversations. And City will be.
Yeah, I don't think Hugo Viana anymore. Yeah, if City went to Sporting now to do any kind of deal, I don't think they would allow Hugo Viana to be involved in any of the discussions. Sadly, I don't think he would be allowed to be.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and nor should he. And we've still got Cheeky, so we've got Cheeky till the summer to.
Oh, apparently someone said Lewis has had a difficult game tonight. Apparently a few have had a difficult game tonight. So. Yeah, Lee Carsley's not the answer, ladies and gents, but that's why I don't watch England. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to call it there. I want to thank everyone for coming on. I am going to do a space because I'm out balls. My missus has gone to bed with her bottom lip hanging out. She's very upset with me. We'll deal with it. I'll deal with it tomorrow. That's going to cost me money tomorrow.
That's fine. So it's very big and very expensive, mine.
Yes, it's going to cost me some money tomorrow. This. So yes, I'm going to do a space in 20 minutes. I might as well. I'm out. She's gone to sleep. Balls to it. Yeah, I am. Never mind. We will be back Sunday evening at some point. I'm going to do a fan calling show that I've been promising everyone. We're going to do a fan calling show on Sunday. So come and have your say. Come and give us your thoughts on camera. You don't have to be on camera if you don't want to be. You can stay off camera like me tonight. Martin's on the couch. Martin's paid a lot of money for a nice cottage, and I'm on the couch in this cottage. Not good. So yeah. Don't worry, Rich, Ozzy, Pat, and Alan and others will be getting bollockings later on via Martin. Dictator Martin's coming out.
Yeah, I'm not having a bollocking. I was perfect. I was
superb. I was on time.
I'm not.
You went half an hour early for you.
Yeah.
So actually, technically, Ozzy was early.
Yeah. So,
but anyway,
you can save your grumpiness for other people because you're talking to the wrong people.
We're the golden boys right now. We're here.
No, you two are here, and I thank you for your time. Rich, thank you so much. I know you've got on. Is Alan? No, Alan is not with me. Alan's in the doghouse with me because Alan's pulled out tonight because he's on LB's tomorrow. Naughty boy.
How is that got on LB's channel?
Yeah.
I will never know. Was he drunk?
I want to say, I don't.
Because
no, I want to big up everyone.
LB's obviously got insurance.
Yeah, Matt Fogg, Blue Goat, FUA for everyone who has contributed tonight. Thank you so much. Even if it's just chatting in the chat, thank you so much. I just want to thank everyone because in the last week or two, we've absolutely zoomed in views, numbers, likes, everything's gone up. And I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone. This is your channel. It will always be your channel. And we cannot thank you enough. So we will see you Sunday with a fan calling show. May no days will be back early on in the week. Promise you that's been delayed. We will get it back. And yeah, we'll be back next Thursday where we can finally talk some football leading into the Wolves game, which will be nice to finally talk some football. Yeah, because what we're doing is now Rich has been off for a few months. Now Pat's having a bit of time off. Ozzy will be next. So yeah. You know what it tells you all? There's only one constant on the Mancunian way.
Alan.
And that's you lot in the comments. So you all thought I was going to say that, didn't you?
Alan, definitely.
No, but thank you all, and we'll see you Sunday evening. You are legends.
The best Alan. It's the best Alan since Alan, isn't he? Who did Alan play for? Who did he play for?
I don't know. Porto.
Which team was it? Was it Porto?
Porto, wasn't
it?
Yeah.
Anyway, big up. Footballprizes.co.uk. Get over there, and we'll see you on the next one. Love to all.
Yeah, I was like,
see till we die.